say your luck box ever again. Ever to me. Ever.
Welcome to part 2, ladies and gentlemen. This session takes place from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. I am down $500, running pretty poorly, but there's an action player in the big blind. I look down at pocket twos in the low jack to start us off. I limp for $2 and it actually limps all the way around. Going to a flop 4 ways, which comes Jack 10 2. We flop bottom set. The action player in the big blind leads out for $13 on this flop. I make a raise here to 50 on a dynamic board, and just the big blind makes the call. Going off to a turn, which is the 8 of hearts. The board is getting straighter, and now he leads into me for $16. Once again, in all blue chips. Some of you might think that he's trying to set his price for a flush draw. Nah, man, he's just crazy. I can't even put him on a range. So I raise with such a strong hand and make it $100 to play. And again, the big blind calls. Going off to a river, which might be the scariest card in the deck, the 9 of hearts. Literally everything gets there. Wow, he checks to me. Thankfully, I'm in position, and I just check it back, expecting to honestly lose this hand a good portion of the time. I flip over twos, he shrugs his shoulders, and we take it down, gaining some momentum into the night. Let's go, off to Jack.
Crazy night, part 2 of the Hideaway. Me and Frank running some deep stacked 1-2. Right now I'm about 1,200 deep. When we see an open from under the gun to $12, we look down at the jiggities in middle position and are surely going to be 3-betting here. I decide to 3-bet to a tune of $35. And we get some information from the cutoff. He cold 4-bets us to 100 total dollars. Really odd spot. It folds back around to me, and I think this is a clear-cut call. I think he can be doing this with worse hands like ace king and ace queen, but I also think he can have all the overpairs, and I can treat this like a set mine. So I make the call for $65 more. We're off to a flop, heads up, out of position. When it comes deuce 10-9 rainbow. Pretty good flop for jacks. I can actually have the best hand here a lot if he's doing this with ace king or ace queen. So for those reasons I check, and he bets the same bet, $100. Kind of a weird spot. I did not hit my set, unfortunately, but I do have an overpair to this board. I don't think he's going to have 10s or 9s here. I think he's just going to be calling my 3-bet and not 4-betting. And I think I can have the best hand here sometimes. So to gather some information and also potentially bluff off an overpair if a card like an 8 or a queen were to come on the turn, I raise here to $220, expecting him to just call this with all overpairs and potentially fold out hands like ace king and ace queen. That's not what happens, though, unfortunately. He min-click re-raises us to $440. At this point, I'm pretty confident he's not doing this with anything worse than aces or kings. I think this is a clear-cut fold. I let out a sigh and let my hand go. We lost a lot of money here, however, did gather a lot of information, and I could have potentially lost more money if I continued to just call in this flop and continue to call turn and river bets on lower card streets. So might have saved some money here. I'm not really sure what the right move was. Let me know what you guys think in the comments, and we move on to the next one. We're back playing some dealer choice games. We are playing Omaha, not just high, but high-low, 4 cards. We look down at a gray hand. Aces with 4s, double suited, 2 diamonds, 2 clubs. Fantastic hand. There are 2 limps to me, and I decide to raise this one up to $30. The small blind and both limpers call, so we're off to a flop 4 ways. It comes king 6 deuce, 1 diamond, 1 club, so we have 2 backdoor nut flush draws, as well as an overpair and the second nut low draw with ace 4. The old gentleman in the small blind, who's a relatively tight and straightforward player, decides to donk out here for $45. Not exactly what you want to see. I'm assuming he has some sort of 2-pair set at least. The hijack makes a call. He's an interesting character. We'll get into more hands with him later on in the vlog, so stick around. And I decide to come along as well. I still have a very strong hand with great draws. So I call for $45, and the turn is the jack of diamonds. Pretty good card. We pick up the nut flush draw now to go along with our overpair. Old gentleman continues betting, though. He bets $50. Really small and relative to the pot. So when the hijack folds, I decide to stick around as well. I call that $50. No need to be raising again. And the river is an interesting one. The ace of spades, we drill top set. However, now we have no playable low. When he decides to check to me, I think this is a spot where I need to be betting really big. I definitely think I'm going to have the high hand every single time here. However, he might have a playable low, and I want to get him off that. I want to get him to fold that. And he might make calls with something like pocket kings or pocket jacks. For those reasons, I bet $200. He goes into the tank and eventually lets his hand go, tells me nice hand, and we are happy to scoop this large pot in our way.
For the second time in the session, I look down at pocket aces. Let's go. In the small blind, there's a limp from under the gun, middle position, and hijack. Think in your head what sizing you guys would raise to in a 1-2 game. I make it $25 to play out of position in the under the gun, middle position, and hijack call. So going off to a flop 4 ways, no easy pots here in Texas. Gonna be out of position to these guys. Flop comes King 7-8, 2 clubs. Pretty nice that we have the ace of clubs. Obviously could be worried about sets and 7-8, but gonna be betting here. I make it $65 to play, hoping to not have to navigate raises or multi-way. None of that happens as they all fold. We take it down and we're chipping up, making fantastic progress to the positive.
If you guys remember me talking about this gentleman in the last hand, the guy in the hijack in the Omaha high-low hand was an absolutely wild player at the table. It didn't seem like he exactly knew what he was doing when he came. He was very quiet and made some very interesting plays the whole night, was very bluff heavy, and bet a lot of times when he had absolutely nothing. We look down at ace 8 of spades, a pretty solid suited ace on the button. We see an open from this interesting gentleman in the cutoff to $8. I decided to actually 3-bet here to isolate. I want to be getting in pots heads up against this guy, especially in position. So I 3-bet here, but really small, just an isolation raise, expecting the small blind, big blind to fold a high percentage of the time to $20. Plans go as accordingly. The small blind, big blind quickly get out of the way, and this gentleman makes the call. The flop comes 8, king, jack, rainbow. Not an ideal flop for us. We have no backdoor flush draw and just bottom pair, but we do have a solid kicker. He checks to me, and I'm happy to pot control here and check back. The turn is the jack of spades. He checks me again. I'm assuming I have the best hand here. However, I decide to keep exercising pot control, hoping that he'll maybe make a bluff into me later on the river. I check, and the river is the 3 of diamonds. He thinks about it for a bit and decides to fire out a bet way over pot here. He bets $55. If I thought I was good on the turn, nothing really changed on the river. I don't think he's going to be slow playing a king or jack. I expected him actually to donk out with pretty much any pair on this board. For those reasons, I make the call pretty quickly, and he mucks his cards, so I don't even have to show my cards here. We scoop in over $100 pot very easily right there, and we are moving on to the next one.
Here's where things start to get weird. I'm in for $1,200, most I've ever been for at the Hideaway poker room. I'm currently at $1,000, and if you guys know me, I always fold the dealer's choice games that happen every 8 hands. But now, because there's action player 1 and action player 2 side by side who have no idea how to play these Omaha games, and I look down at such a strong hand in position of both players, I decide to play this one. My hand is Jack, Jack, King, King, Ace. Wow, very strong. I play it strong. I pot it pre-flop to $60 after the 2 action players limp, so I know they're going to be in the hand. They both call the 60 and the button straddle calls a 60. Going off to a flop, which is $240 in the middle, the board comes 4, 6, 6, 2 clubs. I do flop the nut flush draw, but because the board is paired, it is not as strong, so I check the flop and thankfully the button checks back. Going off to a turn card, which is amazing. It's the Jack of Hearts. We have top full house in a multi-way pot, and action player number 2 leads for $60 under the gun +1. I decide to just make a call here because the only card I'm really scared about would be a queen. I block pocket aces, and a king would give me a better full house. I also want to get the under the gun player involved in the pot. Hopefully he calls this bet as well. Unfortunately, he does not. Everyone else folds, going heads up to a river, which is the queen of clubs. The flush gets there, but our full house is beat by queens. Action player number 1 who folded would just bet and call with anything. Action player number 2 bluffed almost every hand. It was ridiculous. So it didn't surprise me on the river that he checked it to me. Now I really don't think he has too much. So I do make a bet here, trying to get some more value, but he folds, unfortunately, very quickly. We take down a big pot, though, and we are officially in the black. I showed Ace King of Clubs to mess with everyone's head and maybe get called lighter later on in the session. Get ready for the biggest pot of the night. For the same reasons as before, I'm playing an Omaha game. This time only 4 cards, not 5. Action player 1 bets 20. Action player 2 calls and under the gun +1. I make the call here on the button with Ace, Queen, Jack, 2. The big blind calls as well, going to a flop 4 ways, which comes 5-2 Jack. I pick up 2 pair. When it checks to me, I try taking it down immediately. I make it $50 to play, obviously scared of a lot of turn and rivers. The big blind and action player 2 calls, which is the bluffy type, going off to a turn, which is the 4 of spades. Big blind checks, and now the under the gun +1 player pots it for $250. Obviously not a great card for anyone here, especially the person betting out on the flop. I think that he can be putting a lot of pressure on me, and for the reason that I think he can be bluffing here, I decide to make a call, and with the big blind player having less money behind, I know he's not going to go over the top of me, so I make the call to $250, and now the big blind calls all in for $175. He's the real player we're worried about, so we honestly think that he has a straight over there, and that we're hoping the under the gun +1 player is bluffing or has a worse draw than ourselves. After making the call on the turn, going to a huge river card, which is the 2 of diamonds, I boat up. I have him covered. He now goes all in for $210. I snap call. He immediately says the most beautiful words in poker, "You're good." He flips over king, 3-5 with 2 spades. So I had him crushed on the spade draw. He also had the straight draw to go along with it. Look at this huge pot we're scooping in. Playing Omaha pays off today. I will be folding though against any other type of player. I just decided to pick a spot here against worse players. And yes, the big blind player did have 3-6 for the straight, so we sucked out on him. It's 3 in the morning. I have over $2,000 in my stack. I wave over one of my best friends, Jello. I say, come get this action. Jello, come over to my table. He moves over, and this is, no joke, the very first hand that happens once he sits down. He makes it $20 under the gun. Under the gun +1 calls. Action player 2 calls. Guy in the button calls. I'm in the big blind. Jello, I've got pocket aces here. For the 3rd time in the night, I've got pocket aces. I have to raise my friend here. I make it $100 to play. And something that is the most unexpected thing I would ever couldn't even think of. Jello rips it all in for $600 over the top of my bed. Back to me, I have to call this. I do call.
I'm all in.
He asks if I've got aces. I ask if he has kings. He does.
It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Oh my gosh. Aces versus kings versus my best friend. Let's run it once. Going off to a flop, which comes queen to queen. The turn is the 4 of diamonds. I've got his diamonds covered. I've got the ace of diamonds. Going off to a river, which is the... Oh no. Just take my reaction live. Oh no. Oh no, oh no, oh no.
Give me that face, Jello. Come on. It's nothing to be embarrassed about.
Not embarrassed, I've been shocked.
All of our profit, all 14 hours of work wiped down the drain. Jello himself had been down before this pod, so at least I lost it to my best friend. Obviously easier to say that now. After, in the moment, I had to quit the session after this. Very tough, losing a 96% chance to win. Wrapped up the session about even.
Alright, so Jack, you can never say you're a luck box ever again. Ever to me. Ever.
Oh boy, I am in complete shock watching my chips somehow return to me after getting them all in against Frankie's aces, hitting an absolute 2-outer on the river. Wow, that is brutal. I am sorry, homie. I will take you out to a nice steak dinner sometime to make up for this. We stack up all these chips, and this is a great way to continue running the session. We are running very, very hot. Got extremely, extremely lucky here. Final hand and note for us, there's one limp in middle position. The cutoff, who's the interesting gentleman from last hand, decides to open it up to $10. We look down at Johnson & Johnson on the button and decide to 3-bet here to $30. Isolate and get heads up in a pot against this gentleman. Everyone else folds and it gets back to him. He calls for $20 more and he checks dark. We're off to a flop, heads up, which is 3-deuce-9 rainbow. Pretty much have the nuts here. I'm happy to continue betting. I bet the same amount, $30, and he snap raises me to $75. I'm loving where I'm at. I'm assuming him to just have some sort of one pair holdings, not a whole lot of two pairs here. And I decide to snap jam right back in his face for $200, which is what he had left in his stack. He makes a call pretty quickly, and we're off to a run out, which comes the King of Hearts. Not a great card. He might be calling with hands like King Queen, King Jack, hands like that. And the 7 of diamonds on the river. I flip over my jacks and he shows me ace-9, so he did flop pretty well. He had top pair, top kicker, so I understand why he did get it all in. And we are taking this one down, big pot our way to end the night, and we rack up the session with a pretty big profit. How's it going, everyone? We just wrapped up our session back at the apartment now.
Yep.
I'll start us off. Was in the game for 750, out for 1556. So pretty nice session today. I had a tough one versus Frankie.
Nice session.
Trick is just to get it in bad and bank on the river. So I'll teach you guys about that one in this vlog, hopefully.
Yeah, so we were in for the most we've ever been at the Hideaway, 1,200. After that rough one with Jack, but a lot of other good hands, we ended up even, cashed for 1,200. So next gen in the black, haven't lost a 96% in a while, but make sure to leave a like for that one, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.
Peace.